Okay, and welcome everyone to this supplement lecture in RN50. And in today's lecture, we're actually going to be talking about Git and GitHub. So we're going to be discussing what is Git, what is GitHub, and how you can use these tools or to your advantage, and how will these tools come in handy through the course. Let's just get started. And so what is Git? Let's talk about what Git is. And yes, I'm not having these slides with me today, but I'm just going to speak. So Git is a version control tool or a system. Now, what is version control, you may ask? Well, version control is basically controlling different versions of your file. So for example, if I were to make a file, put some random gibberish, save that as gibberish 0. Now, say I want to make a change to this file. Say I want to actually add my name to the end of it. So now if I save this file, now, whoops. So I've saved that. Now say I want to add another change. Say I want to add Julia. However, I actually want to keep one copy of this gibberish 0 file so that, you know, if this change breaks, or if I don't like this change, I can go back. So let's just copy that file and let's do a save as, and let's rename this to gibberish 1. There we go. So I could keep going this way, but let me delete these files. I could keep going this way, right? And frankly, it becomes quite hard. You know, making many copies of the same file. So what does Git do? So Git basically keeps track of every single commit, if you will, that you made to a project. So it basically keeps track of every single change that you have made. And say some part of your code broke in some new change and you want to go back, you can easily do that with Git. Okay, so let's just talk about Git here. Git, it lies in this command prompt. So let me just open that, and we're going to use my desktop for this. So let's init a Git repository now. A Git repository is basically wherever your files live, and if Git is watching that, it's called a Git repository. So I'm just going to make a file, a folder called Git repos, and let's go into Git repos. So cd Git repos. Now let's make another directory called repo 0. And let's go into repo 0. So cd repo 0. And now if I want to make this into a Git repository, I can just say git init. There we go. So we've got our Git repository, right? Now, say I want to add a file. So if I add, I'm just going to use Notepad for this lecture, but say I want to add Notepad index.js. Yes. And say let's write some code in here. So let's just say let x equals 0, or actually const x equals 0, const y equals 2, let sum, or yeah, let sum equals x plus y. So let's just save that. So we've got this file in our thing, but now how do we let Git know that we've made this change to our repository? Well, simple enough. So Git has a if you're running this as a local Git repository, you've got a two-step process actually to letting Git know that you have you have made a change. So first you add the file. So I can easily do that. Well, you can add the file and then you commit it. So you add it to the Git. So think about Git as a tree. Okay, so you have a working tree of files and folders, and so you add a file or you add all your changes to that tree, and when you commit them you tell Git, okay, save these changes, this is my new version. And so these commits are kind of like placeholders that you can use to kind of revert back later on if you need to. Okay, so let's add this file now. So you can either do git add and the file name, so git add index.js, but I feel the easier way to do it is just say git add dot. So that will just add everything to the everything that's in this folder to the Git working tree. Now if I do git status, now git status will currently tell me the status of the Git working tree. Whoops, git status. So you can see that there's no changes made yet, and one file is on the tree. That is the index.js file. So let's commit this. Now to commit, I just say git commit -m, and in quotes, well, M stands for message, so in quotes I have to write any message. Usually this is like whatever changed, so let's just write first release or commit. That's a convention. So what you'll see all this text, and now if I do git status, working tree clean. Now if I do git log, which will basically tell me the history of commits, so that'll give all this data. Now we'll talk about these branches and things like that in just a second. So if you let me just pause here to tell you, if you do have a question, write it in the comments, or you can even write in the live chat when this goes premiere. So let's do the same file. So index.js. Now say I want to print out sum. So I'll do console.log sum and save that. Just to make sure everything's working, let's just run that. Okay, so node index.js. Whoops, node index.js. And we get 2. So okay, everything's working fine in that code. So let's add this change. So git add dot. And if you look at git status now again, you'll see the same thing, but I won't show you. Git commit, and let's just say console.logged. Whoops, the result of sum. There we go. So we've got this git commit working. Okay, so now let's talk about git branches. Okay, so now what is a git branch? So what is a git branch? Well, when we committed our changes, you probably saw the word master a lot. Well, this showed that everything, at least by default, commits to the master branch. And the master, well, think of a branch as, well, it's a branch of a tree. So since we have a working tree for Git, we have branches. Now every branch can hold its own set of commits. For example, by default we commit to the master branch, so every change that we make commits to the master branch. But say we are working on something like a beta version of some software, okay? Then we don't want that to go to the master branch, but we want it, for example, to be on a separate branch so that we can keep pushing it, and when we feel it's good enough, we can then merge it to the master branch so that those changes are then like publicly available when you're using something like a GitHub repository, which I'll talk about in a second, or anything like that. So branches basically are the same, but whatever commit you make on a separate branch will not show up in the main branch. So they're very useful. So let's just make a new branch. So to do that, you just type git branch. Say we want to call this JS beta. And now to check out that branch, or to start committing to that branch, we do git checkout. Okay, so git checkout JS beta. And now say we want to make a new file here. So say we make notepad, let's call this objects.js, and let's just make an object here. So let obj equal those empty objects. Let's save that. So let's add this git commit, and let's call this added object support. So there we go. So now we've committed to JS beta, and if we do git status, so now we're on branch JS beta, and if we do git log, that's the only commit. So we can even change in this file. So if I say obj.name equals pranav, obj dot is using git is equal to true, and I can say console.log obj.name is using git, and let's just run that node. I got pranav is using git. Let's just do another change. This is obj is using git. The source code here doesn't really matter, so, and there we go. So let's run that again. It's true. Okay, so save, and let's close that file, and let's add that as well. So git add commit, let's say added name, and is using git properties to the object to test run node objects.js and see the printed message. There we go. So now let's go back to our master branch. So git checkout master, and now say we want to bring in those changes into our master branch. So this is called merging. So the way we merge is just say git merge JS beta, and now if I just do git status, so working through clean. Okay, so now what merge does is it basically brings in the changes of the branch that we specify into our Git repository or into our master branch. So that's basically how you use branches. So finally, let's talk about GitHub. So what is GitHub? Well, GitHub is an online place where all your repositories are stored. So you can choose to upload or create a new repository online on GitHub, and you can either choose to make it private or public. Now, I won't be going into very much detail about GitHub because a lot of the stuff there is self-explanatory, but I will talk about a few things, and going in the future, I will talk about a few other things like GitHub pages and so on and so forth. So let's just visit this GitHub site. So let's just go over to github.com, and you have to create an account, but mine's already created. And when you do, you get to this dashboard with all your repositories. So it's just like your normal repository, but online. So I'm just going to show you how to clone a repository, how to push, and how to push to a repository. So let's just clone a repository here. I'm not going to create a new one because it's pretty simple. You just create a title, a description, and well, you create something called a readme.md file, which basically means you tell the users or tell people who are using your repository more about your repository. So let's actually do that. Actually, instead of cloning an existing repository, let's actually create a new one. Create new, and let's do a new repository here. Let's call this supplement lectures. And let's just describe this as the repository for supplementary lectures. And we can either keep it public or private. I'm just going to leave it public here. Let's add a readme. Actually, let's just leave out the readme. We can either do a git ignore, or we can do a license. We don't want to do any of that, so let's just create a repository. And now you have to clone the repository. So you have two ways of cloning one. You can either do HTTPS or SSH. Recommended is HTTPS because it's quicker. So you just click on this copy to clipboard, so it'll copy this link to your clipboard. Then you go into your terminal, and wherever you want to close it, so ours is in, we'll do it in git repos. And if I just type git clone and paste that URL, it will clone. It will clone to this supplement lectures, but it will tell me it's an empty repository. Well, let's just change that. So let's go into that. Whoops. Supplement lectures. So let's just type here. Let's make a new file. So let's do another index.js, or actually let's do an index.html. And over here, let's just write some HTML. So doctype HTML head. Let's put a title as my page, and let's close the head. Let's make a body in H1 saying hello. Close the body tag and close the HTML. So let's save that and let's add that to the repository. So git add dot git commit. Again, first commit. Now, say you want to push this to the online repository. So like people can, if people clone this repository on their computer, they can see what change have you made. So let's just do a quick git push. So you do git push and that will push it. Now the first time you do this, it may ask you to log in with your GitHub username and password. You can just do that. For me, I've already logged in, so it will just push and it will show this, and there we go. So our push was successful. If we go and reload my page, if you look at latest commit and first commit. Now let's add a file in the online, so you can even add files online. Let's create a new file. Okay, so let's go over to, let's name this file. Let's name this page 0 HTML. And let's just say hi. So it doesn't really care about the syntax. And let's commit new file. So it's created page 0 now. So say we want to get this onto our local version of the repository. Now in our command prompt, we just do git pull, and that'll pull in all the changes that we don't already have. So that'll pull it in, and if we look, if we do a dir, So we have page 0.html. So essentially that's how you use Git and GitHub, and in the future I'm going to be talking more about how you use GitHub pages and a few other things after our lecture. Thank you.